One of the most important source of raising finance is through the shares. Public, private and global enterprise. So it has been allotted 7 marks. The number of questions asked is 12. Out of that he has a choice. He has to answer only 10 questions. So 10 into 2 is 20. Hello everyone, I am Purnima, faculty in the Department of Commerce, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence. In this session on business studies, I will be taking up the syllabus for business studies and also the various chapter-wise allotment of marks and also the question paper pattern. Once again, I welcome you all to this session on business studies, that is for first year pre-university students. You have all just passed your 10th standard and now you have opted for the commerce course. Now this commerce is one of the oldest occupations of man. So when you think about commerce or business, so it is one of the oldest occupations, and ever since the invention of the wheel, we have seen that man has been very busy with all his activities, and as a result of his busyness in activities, we got this word business. Now, in this subject on business studies, we will be discussing about the syllabus which is there for the pre-university first year students and also the weightage of marks. Now, there are two parts here. So, this will be the textbook for the pre-university students of first year, and they will be who have opted for commerce, and then we will be seeing about the syllabus. We'll have a discussion about what is the syllabus involved in this first year pre-university students for commerce. Now, in this chapter, that is part 1, we are having the foundations of business. Now, what is this foundations of business? And before we think about the foundations of business, there are some things which we should know, and that will be included in all these chapters. Now, in the first chapter 1, we have business, trade and commerce. So, what is business? What is trade? What is commerce? So, in this chapter, we will be having a brief look into the Indian history. So, in this Indian history, how are the business activities going on? So, dating back to the 1st century BC up till the Make in India revolution, or whatever we call as the Atmanirbhar Bharat, up till now. So what are the various developments of business in India, and what is the economic development, how the business community has prospered all these years. So all these things will be discussed in this business, trade and commerce. Now, in this we have 2 sections in the first chapter. In section 1, it will be dealing mainly with how the Indian economy was before the advent of the East India Company. That was before the British Empire came to India. So how was the economic situation? And later on, after the British Empire or after the advent of the East India Company, what was the situation of India? And then there will be section 2, where we will be having a discussion on what is business, what are the economic activities, what is the non-economic activity, and also we will be having a discussion on the various types of economic plans which came into existence. So all this we will be studying in this chapter 1, that is related to business, trade and commerce. So what is commerce? What are the 2 types of commerce? That is, one is industry and the other one is business. And what are the different types of industries we are having? And we will also be discussing about the various types of industries, etc. So in this first chapter, so it will be for you a foundation for your future learning of commerce. So whenever there are any terms and conditions, or whenever you come across any terms related to commerce, so for that all the basis will be in this first chapter. Now, the second chapter, that is forms of business organization. Now, What do we mean by forms of business organizations, or what are the various types of business organizations we have? So, in this chapter, we will be having a discussion on what is a sole trading concern. Sole trading concern. Then a sole trading concern is a concern, or it is a business organization run by only one person. So he will be investing in the business and he will be earning the profits, and he will be again reinvesting in the business. However hard he works, so whatever the benefits he gets, it will be enjoyed by himself. So this is the oldest and the most simplest form of business organization. Now, the second form of business organization is partnership. Now, what do we mean by partnership? So, as we all know, partnership refers to there are two or more people coming together and investing in a business. So, when two or more people come together and invest in a business, and they are bound by a partnership deed. Well, now what is a partnership deed, and what are the terms and conditions of the deed, and what are the various ways in which, what are the various types of partners who can come together? So all these interesting things we will be learning in this chapter 2. And in addition to that, we will be also learning about HUF. Now, what do you mean by HUF? HUF is nothing but Hindu Undivided Family. So, in this HUF, this is one form of business organization which is uniquely found only in India. That is a family-run business. A HUF is a family-run business where the head of the family will be the Karta. All the members who are born in the family, all the family members, they become the co-partners of this business organization. In the second chapter, we will be also discussing about what is a cooperative society. We all know the motto for cooperative society. What is the motto for cooperative society? All for one for all. Or a cooperative society is formed for the welfare of all the members of the society. Or this kind of society is helpful because it takes care of all the interests of all its members. Then we will also be looking into what is a joint stock company. So what is this joint stock company? So joint stock company is of recent origin and it came into existence after the industrialization. That is, after the era of industrialization, it came into existence. And this has become necessary to ensure that there are huge amounts of money which is needed to run the business, and this amount cannot be provided by one single individual, and it requires the investment by a large number of people, and hence this joint stock company came into existence. Now, we have so many forms of business organizations, and we will be studying about the features. We will be also studying about the merits and demerits of each of these forms of business organizations. So, this is in the second chapter, that is forms of business organization. Now, coming to the third chapter, we have private, public and global enterprises. Now, what do we mean by private enterprise? So, private enterprise may be any enterprise which is run by one single individual or by any partnership. So, under the private sector, we can have sole trading concern, we can have partnership, we can have Hindu and HUFs. So, all these, they come under the private sector, and even the joint stock company can be a private company if it is run by a family business. So, a private sector is a sector of business organization which is run by individuals, and they earn the benefits of whatever is they are earning. So, next will be the public. Now, what do we mean by public enterprises? Now, this public sector or the public enterprises, they are set up by the government. So the government will be functioning, or it will be providing certain facilities to its citizens, and it will be through the public sector. So one of the most prominent examples for the public sector is the railway department, or we can also have the post and telegraphs department. So where the Indian government is providing railway facilities to its citizens. So it is one kind of an enterprise which is run by the government, and it is in the form of a departmental undertaking. So in this public sector, we have the departmental undertaking, we have the statutory corporations, and there are other sectors which are formed for the benefit of the public. So this departmental undertakings, they will come under that particular department. That is, for example, if you take the example of the railway department, it will come under the Ministry of Railways. So in this way, that ministry will be looking after the affairs of this railway department. Then the next important form of business organization discussed is the global enterprises. Now, what do we mean by global enterprises? So we all have heard of the concept of global village. Now, why we call it as the global village? Because of the advancement in information technology. Now, we can sit here and talk to any of our relatives who are abroad or any part of the world. So that is because of advancement in science and technology. Now, this has helped us to bring us closer to all our cousins and friends who are staying abroad. So before, we had to wait for a long time to talk to them, or we had to write to them. So all these things which we have today, it was not there before. Now, because of the advancement in technology, it is easier for us to communicate with anybody all over the world within a few minutes. So this is because of this in advancement in science and technology, and as a result of which, we are also having vast improvements in businesses also. Now, this concept of global enterprises. Now, this global enterprises means a company which is having its business in almost all the countries of the world. So all over the world. So that is what we call as the global enterprises, or we can also call them as the multinational companies. So multinational, as the name itself suggests, such companies will be having their business in almost all the countries all over the world. Now, we will be having a look at all these types of organizations, what are the merits and what are the demerits, and we will also be having a look into what will be the role of the public sector in the economic development of the nation. Then, next, Chapter 4, we will be studying about business services. Now, what do we mean by business services? We all know about business products. Product is anything that can satisfy a human need. Okay, or we can call a product as it is a bundle of utilities. But then, what do we mean by a service? A service is something which is given to the customer, but there will be no goods as such. Only the service will be provided. Now, what are the examples for various kinds of services? Now, first one is banking service. Then we also have the insurance service. Then we have the warehousing service. So in this way, we can see that there are so many types of services which can be given to the customers. Now, what are the various kinds of services which are available, and what are the various options before them? All this we will be studying in this 4th chapter, that is business services. Now, next one is in the 5th chapter, we will be studying about the emerging modes of business. Now, what do we mean by emerging modes of business? As I had explained earlier, because of the advancement in telecommunication, or because communication has become very fast nowadays, we are evolving into more and more new forms of business organization, that is e-business. Now, what is this e-business or e-commerce as we call? So, this is one of the latest advent of the human civilization, that is e-business or the electronic business. So, in this we have 3 forms, that is B2B, B2C, C2B. So, there are various modes of business which are emerging, and we will be having a look into the almost or what are the various modes of businesses which are present in this 20th century. Then next will be in chapter 6, we will be having the social responsibility of business and business ethics. Now, what do we mean by social responsibility of the business and what is business ethics? Now, what is the social responsibility? It refers to the responsibility of the business towards the society. So, what kind of social responsibility it has? Suppose there is an earthquake or suppose there is flood in the nation, then how the companies are responsible, how they should look after the welfare of the people. So that is what we will be learning in corporate social responsibility. Now, any company for that matter, it will be making profits. Now, how does it make profits? It is only if the people of the society encourage the company. Only if they buy the products of the company will prosper. And in addition to that, the company will be drawing resources from the society. So, when whatever kind of resources, it may be in the form of money, materials or machines or manual labor. So, all this it will be drawing from the society, and if the society is in danger or if the society is facing any problem, then it is the duty of the company to go ahead and help the citizens, or it should see that all welfare measures should be taken for the benefit of the common man. So that is the social responsibility of any business. And then we will also be discussing about the business ethics. So what are the various business ethics and what are the ethics to be followed by the business? So all this we will be studying in this chapter 6, that is social responsibilities of business and business ethics. So in all these, studying these 6 chapters, you will be knowing the various foundation for the business. So what kind of business you need to develop and what are the various avenues available in front of you. So all these things you will be learning in these 6 chapters, that is in part 1, that is foundations of business. Now, coming to part 2. In this part 2, we will be discussing about corporate organization, finance and trade. In this part 2, it is solely devoted to the corporate sector, that is the joint stock kind of organization. So, what do we mean by the corporate organization? From where it is getting the finance and how the products are traded. So, this forms the part 2 of this syllabus. Now, in this chapter 7, we will be discussing about formation of a company. Now, if you suppose you and I want to start a company, what are the various rules and regulations to start a company and how it is to be formed, how do we generate a business idea and how do we start a business. So, all these things relating to the formation of a company you will be knowing in chapter 7. So, what is a company? What are the features of a company? So, all this you would have already studied in part 1. So, in part 2, you will be studying about how to set up your own joint stock company. So, in this formation of a company, what are the various things you have to look into? So, what are the various documents which you have to prepare? Whether it is the memorandum of association or the articles of association or the prospectus, etc. So, all these things you will be knowing. And what do we mean by memorandum of association? What is article of association? What is a prospectus? So, all these things you will be knowing in this chapter 7, which is devoted to formation of a company. Then, in chapter 8, we will be looking into the sources of business finance. So, as we all know, a joint stock company cannot be started by one single individual. So, it requires the investment from thousands and millions of people. So, nowadays, because of the multinational companies, we can see people from all over the world investing in any one company. So, it requires huge investment, as a result of which we need to know what are the various sources of business finance. Suppose you want to start your own joint stock company. So, what are the various sources of finances available in front of you? All these things you will be learning in this chapter. Now, in the sources of business finance, so one of the most important source of raising finance is through the shares. Now, how do we raise finance through shares? By selling the shares of the company. Whole capital of the company is divided into small parts called as shares, and these shares are sold to the public, and whatever money is collected, so that will be taken as share capital. Now, in these shares also, we have two types of shares. One is the equity shares, the other one is the preference shares. Now, what are equity shares? What are preference shares? What are the rights of the equity shareholders? What are the rights of the preference shareholders? That we will be knowing, and then we will also be having a discussion on what are debentures, then what are the other sources of finance. So, in sources of business finance, we will be looking into the various options available for raising the finance for starting a joint stock company. Then, in chapter 9, it is devoted to MSME and business entrepreneurship, or we also call it as the small business. So, in this small business, how do you set up a small business and how the government is encouraging you, how it will be giving you the technical knowledge, how it will be providing finance for you. So, all these things we will be learning in chapter 9 so that we can encourage future businessmen in our students. Then next, the chapter 10, we have internal trade. So, we all know that there are two types of trade. One is internal trade, one is external trade. Now, in this internal trade, what are the various options available? So, whether it is the interstate trade or whether it is the trade within the same district or within the same state. So, all these things we will be learning in this chapter 10, that is internal trade or trade within the country. So, that is internal trade, and in chapter 11, this is international business. Now, what do we mean by international business? So, it is in other words nothing but external trade. Now, in external trade, what are the various options? So, suppose you are exporting goods. So, what is the export procedure involved? And if you are importing goods from other countries, so what is the import procedure? So, all these things we will be learning in this international business. So, how the business is there and what are the various foreign exchange regulations of the Act and what are the various banks which are giving loans for import-export business. So, this is a part of this chapter 11, that is international business. Now, in this syllabus, we have discussed about part 1 and part 2. Now, let us look into the weightage of marks allotted for each of these chapters. Now, coming to chapter 1, that is business, trade and commerce, they have allotted 7 marks for this chapter. Now, in this, you will have 1 mark 1 question, 2 marks 1 question, on 4 marks 1 question, and totally we will be having 3 questions from this chapter, but the marks is 7. So, out of 100 marks, you will be scoring 7 marks from this first chapter. Now, in chapter 2, forms of business organization, so it is heavily. So, you are getting 19 marks from the second chapter. Now, how this breakup of 19? Let us see. See, here we have 1 mark 1 question. For 2 marks, there will be 1 question. 4 marks, no questions at all. For 8 marks, there will be 2 questions for 8 marks. That is, 2 into 8 is 16. 16 plus 1 plus 2 is 17, 18 plus 1, 19. So, totally in this chapter, we are getting 4 questions from the second chapter. Now, from the third chapter, that is public, private and global enterprise, So it has been allotted 7 marks. So 7 marks we will have from the third chapter, and 1 mark question 1, 2 marks question 1, 4 marks question 1. So totally we will be having a total of 3 questions from this third chapter. Now in the fourth chapter, that is business services, so they are asking us for 15 marks. So you should understand that the second chapter and the fourth chapter, they have more weightage. So why? Because the second chapter almost they are asking us 19 marks, and then for the fourth chapter they are asking questions worth 15 marks. So if we have to just see the breakup of this 15 marks, so 1 mark question 1, 2 marks question 1, 4 marks question 1, 8 marks question 1. So totally it comes up to 4 questions. Now in addition to all these, we have one important section, that is the POQs, or the practical oriented questions, that comes for 5 marks. Now out of these 4 chapters, they may ask you one POQ. So they may ask anyone from any one of these chapters, and this practical oriented questions, it carries 5 marks. Now next is in the 5th chapter, the emerging modes of business. So they have allotted 7 marks for this chapter. Now in this we will have one mark question, 2 marks question, 4 marks question. So total number of question is 3. Now for the 8th chapter, that is social responsibility of business, so it is also having 7 marks being allotted. So you will have a breakup of 1 mark question 1, 2 mark question 1, 4 mark question 1, and totally there will be 3 questions which will be asked. Now coming to the 7th chapter, that is formation of a company, we have number of marks allotted is 7. So in this 1 mark, 2 mark, 4 mark, and total number of questions is 3. Now in the sources of business finance, they have allotted 19 marks again. So this is a very important chapter which you have to concentrate and study. So in this we have 1 mark, 2 mark, and 4 mark questions, and also one 8 mark question. In addition, we have one POQ. So all these you should concentrate depending on the weightage of marks. Then in the 9th chapter, that is small businesses, so the marks allotted is 7. So in this 1 mark 1 question, 2 mark 1 question, 4 mark 1 question. So total number of questions is 3. Then in internal trade, again the marks allotted is 15 marks from this chapter. So 1 mark question, 2 marks question, 4 marks question, 8 marks question, and totally 4. In addition, you may get any one POQ from any of these 3 chapters. Then next we have this international business. So they have allotted 14 marks for this international business. So breakup is 1 mark here, 2 marks, and 8 marks question. So the total number of question is 5. So in this way we can see that the breakage of the chapter wise weightage of marks, and then the total number of marks allotted is 124. Now in this 124 we are having 12 1 mark questions, 12 2 mark questions, 4 10 mark questions, 6 8 mark questions, and so the total number of questions is 40. Then next we have practical oriented questions. There will be marks allotted is 15, whereas the number of questions is 3. So 3 practical oriented questions. Now if you add all this, the total number of questions asked here in this PUC is 139, and the number of questions is 43. So this is for 43 questions they will ask, and the marks, total marks carried is 139. Now, let us look into the section-wise distribution of marks. Now, as you all know, the question paper pattern will be Section A, Section B, Section C, Section D, Section E. So, there will be 5 sections in the question paper pattern. Now, in this Section A, it will be a 1-mark questions. So, in Section A, 1-mark questions, the number of questions is 12. So, out of 12 questions, the student has to answer 10 questions. For each, 1 mark will be allotted. So, total marks will be 10. Now, in Section B, again, it is a 2-mark question where again the number of questions is 12. So, out of 12, so he will have to answer 10 questions. So, the marks carried by Section B is 24 marks. Questions worth 24 marks will be asked, but he has to answer only 10. So, 10 into 2 is 20. So, 20 will be the score for Section B. Now, in Section C, we can see that the number of questions asked is 10. So, the marks for each question is 4. So, the total number of questions that is marks is 40 here. But then the student has to answer only 7 questions. So, out of 10 questions he has a choice. So, he has to answer only 7 questions. So, 7 into 4, that comes up to 28 marks. Then under Section D, he will be asked 6 questions. So, it will be for 8 marks. So, the total will be 6 into 8 is 48. So, out of the 6 questions, the student has to answer only 4 questions. So, 4 into 8 equals 32. So, 32 marks has been allotted to Section D. Now, coming to Section E, so we have number of questions asked is 3. So, this refers to the POQs, that is the practical oriented questions. So, the marks allotted per question is 5. So, the total marks is 15, but out of 3, he has to answer only 2. So, 2 into 5 equals 10. So, coming to the total here, so number of marks for which the questions have been asked is 139 marks, and after all the choice, he will be given 100 out of 100. So, this is the section-wise distribution of marks. Now, let us see what is the question paper pattern. So, in this, we have the question paper pattern here. Under Section A, that is 10 marks, 1 question. That is 1 mark into 10 questions. So, the student has to answer 10 questions from Section A, but number of questions asked is 12. In Section B, again, the number of questions asked is 12. Out of that, he has a choice. He has to answer only 10 questions. So, 10 into 2 is 20. Now, under Section C, he will be asked 10 questions, but he has a choice. He can answer only 7 questions, and 7 into 4 comes up to 28. Now, under Section D, again, he will be asked 6 questions. Out of that, he should answer only 4 questions. So, 4 into 8 comes up to 32. And under Section E, he will be asked 3 questions. He has a choice and he has to answer only 2 questions, and 2 into 5 is 10. Now, this is the introduction of this syllabus where we have discussed the syllabus of the first PUC, and we have also discussed about the chapter-wise weightage of marks and also the section-wise distribution of marks. Hope you have all liked and understood this session. Thank you.